immunizations, as you can see. Okay, so there are certain ones that we need to go over. I'll highlight some of the key points, but you need to understand the immunizations overall, like each one. They all have their amounts of dosaging that you need, how to receive the doses, like some of them are a few months apart, some of them are every 2 months or whatever. So doses, how to administer those doses, and then of course, like precautions, contraindications, like who should not receive these vaccinations or immunizations, right? Like what kind of allergens would restrict you, or pregnancy, or immunosuppressed, or things like that, so that you understand and can be cautious of who is receiving it. So you can go ahead and see here, the first thing is administration, and then afterwards, we'll go down the list of the precautions on the next page over. That's how the chapter divided now here. So, I'll point out certain things about it. Let's see. First one that's coming up there, TDAP. So this, if you're over the age of 19,
Morning.
Alright. If they're over 19 years of age, because you usually receive this as a kid, but as a kid immunization, we'll go over it during OB and PEDS. We had a series as a child. But that's why now that you've received as a child, when you're an adult, you're supposed to get your booster every 10 years. But nobody does. So then usually what happens is you poke yourself with like a little rusty nail or something, and then you go to the ER, and then they give you the booster there. So you don't die from tetanus. You just spasm to death.
It's pretty funny.
Okay, measles, mumps, rubella. Follow recommendations for administering 1 or 2 doses to clients between the ages of 19 and 49 who lack documentation of immunization or prior infection or lab proof of immunity. People born before 1957 are considered immune to measles and mumps. Anaphylactic-like reaction to gelatin or neomycin is also a contraindication for receiving the MMR vaccine. Use caution with those that have a history of thrombocytopenia. So here we are with MMR. Okay. It's 1 or 2 doses. It depends on the manufacturer now. 1 or 2 doses. Do not give if they are allergic to gelatin or neomycin. Now they say lab proof is people can get the MMR vaccine, but sometimes over the years, you can lose a little bit of immunity. So that's why here you get titers, for example, when you came to school. The titers measures how immune you are to all of these communicable diseases that you regularly immunize against. So some of you may have needed to get the chicken pox one again, or something else that you were missing or low. Again, seeing how our B cells and T cells work is like a little refresher. Yes.
Why is it people before 1957
Because the immunizations didn't exist back then. They probably had it. They were probably exposed.
They just got sick.
Like chicken pox before varicella, most people got chicken pox, so then that's when the adults were immune, but kids would continue to get it. And same thing with polio. like a lot of the vaccine immunizations kicked in the last 70 to 80 years. So, what are we, 10, 20, 50, yeah, 70 years. They've kicked in around then, was when you started really seeing, because again, the first ones started getting vaccinated against were like smallpox, varicella. People used to have chicken pox parties. That was a thing when they realized like once you get it, you don't get it again. So people used to gather their kids. So let's say like we each here have 1 or 2 kids, and then my kid got chicken pox, and then one day like y'all just come over while my kid has chicken pox, and your kid goes around my kid, and you would all have chicken pox, and then we would have it, and then we've eradicated it. You get what I mean? Like we're not gonna pass it on anymore. It's not gonna be like happening here and there.
Yeah, they get immunity.
They would become immune to it. So
Naturally.
it was like it's called chicken pox party. It was a term coined back then. People used to do it, like bring your kids over and just give them chicken pox. They're gonna get it. So again, varicella, 2 doses. Oh, the MMR, by the way. Now, it used to be always IM, but now, depending on manufacturer, it could also be subcutaneous. A new manufacturer kicked in. You guys remember how like a few years ago they had the Disneyland outbreaks beginning? So when that started happening again, and like outbreaks started happening in the US, there was a need to start, like, you know what I mean, like again, producing and starting up again with the MMR. So a new manufacturer, I think, kicked in, and then they made it though that it was subcutaneous, not IM. I was a little shocked myself. They're about to give it to me when I came here. I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, cause he was like, near the back of my arm, and I was like, isn't it IM? And he's like, no, he's like, it's the new one is subcutaneous. He's like, I'll double check the order if you want. He's like, it doesn't matter. I said, yeah, you do that. And then, he did, and he's like, it's sub-Q. He's like, we've been doing it for the last few months. He's like, ever since the Disneyland. I came here, 7 years ago? And the Disneyland outbreaks were then, that's when it started. So some of them are, sub-Q. I don't think they're IM anymore, but depends on the manufacturer. All right, varicella. Give 2 doses to adults who do not have evidence of a previous infection, or 1 dose, depending on the type of zoster vaccine. Give a 2nd dose to adults who have only had 1 previous dose. Varicella is contraindicated for those who have some cancers or hypersensitivity to neomycin and gelatin. So varicella, be 1 or 2 doses, and again, no gelatin or neomycin if they're allergic to this. And then it says the vaccine is not recommended for clients who have HIV, congenital immune deficiencies, or those living with immunosuppressant medications. So do not give to immunosuppressed clients, meaning clients with a weak immune system, as well as no pregnant women. Pneumococcal polysaccharide vaccine and pneumococcal conjugate. Follow recommendations for administration to adults who are immunocompromised, have specific chronic diseases, smoke cigarettes, live in long-term facilities, or receive previous doses. PTSD is not effective in children younger than 2 years old. 13-valent pneumococcal vaccine is recommended for infants and children. So there's different versions of it. Essentially, you should know that this one is given to those with are immunocompromised or history of smoking. Or other chronic allowed for older adults or other chronic illness, mainly older adults. Hepatitis A. 2 to 3 doses, usually I think it's 2. Okay. 94% protection after 1 dose. Adults who receive their second dose are 100% immune. So you see, it's not okay that, it's not okay that you you walk out of the restaurant without washing your hands. It's just, you're immunized with hepatitis A. I know you do it all the time, I see you. Guys just walk on out of there. I've heard from female coworkers, it's more common in the female restroom. Walk on out of there. I don't think they're lying when they walk in like this. I just see students walk out of there without washing their hands. It's like that. Guys are worse. You know LACC? I took my peers with LACC. This is a serious thing. Okay, like, not a joke. I cannot make this up. Okay? I'm walking out the courtyard. They have big courtyards from like building to building. This dude, there's just people walking everywhere. Right? We're going in class, wherever. People are walking around the campus. They're walking the big courtyard. It's pretty empty this time around. There's like a few people here and there, right, walking. And this dude is like walking like towards my kind of general direction from over there. Not exaggerating, not lying to you. He's just casually walking. One hand just digs in, inside his jean. Just a double scratch, and then took it out and just continued walking.
Oh, that's fucking disgusting.
Like if it's cool, like he was just at home and stuff. And I was like, you did not just do that. Like, no shame. See? This why I don't touch door handles. People make fun of me because I walk around with a little napkin. It's 500 of y'all, man. Touching that door.
Why do they hate it? What's the
So next time you go to Chipotle, rubbing down that counter, everybody's rubbing down as you're picking your food. I want corn on mine.
I avoid touching it. No. I order like this. I know.
It's alright, don't worry, you won't get sick. We will, don't worry. We're still on the bottom of 601, last two on 601. So hepatitis B, 2, 3, or 4 doses depending on vaccine type. Usually it's 3. There must be at least 1 month. Listen up, because I'm not going to write it down for y'all. Look at hepatitis B. There's specific instructions for how they're administered. 1 month between doses 1 and 2, and at least 2 months between doses 2 and 3. A minimum of 4 months are required between doses 1 and 3. Clients have a greater than 85% protection after the second dose of Hep B, and more than 90% after the third dose. The antibody duration is 5 to 7 years. Hence again, you get your titers here, and a lot of you have to get Hep B again. It's not like a lifetime situation. Now, this is also the one that gets used, it's one of the first ones that you'll get as a child. You usually get this before leaving the hospital, so you can already start being protected against it. Okay? So, I put there, it says 2, 3, and 4, but realistically, most patients here will give you 3 doses. And you need to know the months apart from how to administer it. So it says there, right, that it's like, you take the first dose, and then you have 1 month. And then between the second and third dose, you need at least 2 months. But between the 1 and 3, you need a total of 4 months in between. So you're not getting these exactly at the 1 month mark, but you need at least 1 month in between. Does that make sense? So those are the minimums that I drew out. Between 1 and 2, you have to wait at least a month. Generally, doctors will tell you to come back like in 2, and then like in 3 months between your second and third. That way, you can, have waited across the 4 months. Okay? Flu vaccine. So this should be yearly for adults. Okay? The inactivated is okay for pregnant. So make sure you know the differences between inactivated and live or full.
What's the RID?
Recombinant, I think it's the live.
No, it says like the live.
No, the live is the nasal. I'm not sure what it says with the comments, only for adults. I'll check. Prior to have a severe allergy to chicken, eggs, and it doesn't say it on here, but also be wary of yeast. So since it doesn't say it on this book anymore, we'll leave that out, but don't think it's uncommon for it. So if you have an allergy to eggs, you cannot receive this. Occurrence of Guillain-Barré within 6 weeks of prior. Or if they have a history of or family history of Guillain-Barré syndrome. And what time is this typically given at? During the what? During the fall. So for the flu, the weekend can be given to pregnant women, the live to regular adults, no allergy to eggs, or history of, or watch out for Guillain-Barré syndrome. And you usually get it in the fall, once a year. It's like I would say, it's like a nerve dysfunction, like a neuromuscular dysfunction. So really,
Very rare.
about the flu and VA? Yeah. If they had a history of, or it's common, or they've experienced it before, they can't have it. If you're allergic to eggs, that must suck.
Being allergic to eggs.
Being allergic to eggs.
Can't have gluten in food.
Oh yeah,
But I think
Alright. Meningococcal. Two doses. Two doses. One is given at 11 to 12 years of age. And the second dose, a booster at 16. Second year, 16 years. Now, administered to clients who are greater than 16 years of age, who are at high risk. People like with sickle cell disease, HIV, or travel outside the U.S. frequently. Military, college student living dorms. So frequent travelers, or I should say frequent international traveling. And I'm gonna put it like this: close quarters living. Examples of this are military and college dorms. Okay. Also, people who have a history of sickle cell disease need this a lot. There was recent, it was crazy, like recent, I think last year, I read this guy died from a meningococcal, which was like unheard of, because again, most people don't get it. He was like a college student. I don't think they got it at the college, but just coincidentally, like he was a college student. And then he ended up getting meningococcal pneumonia, and he died from it. Getting meningitis, so on. Okay. Human pet, and then like the DTaP, TDAP, right? Pertussis. You guys heard whooping cough before?
Yeah.
Horrible. All right. HPV. Human papillomavirus. Now, HPV, there are 3 types of vaccines available for use in the U.S. In short, what I really need you to know is if the initial dose, look at the third bullet point, if the initial dose is administered before age 15, only 2 doses are required, and the second should be given 6 to 12 months after the first. If the initial dose is administered after the 15th birthday, 3 doses are required. The second dose is recommended 1 to 2 months after the first, and the third 6 months from the first. So, less than 15, 2 doses. But more than 15, 3 doses. And then you're responsible there for seeing how far apart they should be. Highlight the little bullet point, the 2 of them, that it lets you know how to space them out. Okay? Now it says 9 to 14 years for the initial dose, 2-dose series. Vaccine is not recommended for clients who are older than 26 years of age. Can be administered for 27 to 45 years of age after you've discussed it with the doctor. So generally you start giving this, or you recommend it, and most people get it. They change a little bit on the book, but the answer probably remain the same. Most people get it at 11 to 12 years of age, but you can get it as early as 9. Now they switched it there to say that most people are getting it between the ages of 9 and 14 now, which I'm assuming is pretty standard now. Okay. Now, the zoster vaccine, this is shingles, okay, like the return version of varicella, of chickenpox. chickenpox party babies that are now old. 1 dose if you're over 65 years of age. Or if you're older than 19 but are immunocompromised. Yes?
So you said that one for shingles?
Mhm.
So did that recently change, cause when I got it, it's 2 doses active. And I just got it last year.
I'm not sure about that, but for your test, just answer this. But for real life, listen to your doctor.
Well, I ended up just getting one, cause that shit's not too loud.
I've heard it's horrible, yeah.
And I was too scared to go back.
But my mom says that.
I swear, I was like.
Well, you should, because, well, I don't know. My mom has had shingles,
Yeah.
and my mom is like, I would not wish that, I'm gonna wish that on me.
My boss
She's
got
like,
it on her face.
yeah, there's like, it's horrible, like, to get shingles.
Isn't like the whole nerve patch
It's
like on fire?
so, chicken pox, the first varicella, it's more like body, like, almost like systemic, right? You get like the rash and the things all over your body. But when it returns as shingles, it doesn't attack the whole body, but just a little area of it. And you'll notice that the specks are like following like a trail almost. It doesn't mean it's straight, but you see that it follows like a trail. And it's because it's attacking a nerve. And so then it's very extremely painful because it's the nerve that's being like inflamed and attacked. So that's why shingles is really painful. Because generally what happens is, since it's a virus, varicella, it lives in your body, like it stays. You don't get cured from it, you just kind of like suppressed it. But as you get older and your immune system drops, it'll attack again. It can happen just from like, again, either, not irritation necessarily, but like you have like a moment of like where your immune system doesn't, you can't get shingles. But the most common reason is older people when their immune system drops. That's the most common, but my mom had it young too. My mom had it when she was like in her 30s. Yeah. It could be the exacerbation from the trauma from the sun.
My dad had it when he was like chickenpox, but also heard that like chickenpox, like 50 years later will manifest as shingles.
Well,
That's wild.
Well, no, that's what I was just figuring out. That's literally like, I'd say majority of the cases, that's what happens. That's what she said, like, why don't older people, and it's like, because when you get chickenpox, viruses don't leave your body. So then you'll develop it when your immune system drops when you're older.
Or exacerbation.
Yeah.
You didn't get chickenpox, so you don't have it. You getting shingles is very slim chance.
Get some response. In the back. Relax. If you got infected with chickenpox, you will develop this when your immune system drops at a later age. Generally when you're older than 65. Can it happen earlier because something dropped or affected your immune system? Sure, the virus can then return. And again, when it returns, it usually attacks a specific nerve. People with vaccines are less likely to get it, but you're also at a risk of potentially getting chickenpox should your immune system not be there. Like for example, my titers for varicella was low when I came here for nursing. So depending on how your immunity is, that can change things. So people forget that vaccines or immunizations are not perfect, and people grab these like case studies and make it like this is gospel. Does that make sense? It's like, well, you know, I got varicella vaccine and now I got varicella later. It's like, well, things could have happened to your immune system.
Or you got a weak one.
Or or something's going on. But generally, they affect people in the same way. But can you lose immunity over time? Yes. If your immune system is just not up to par, you can lose it over time. So all of these take things into effect, as well as just your general immune response now. That's why some of us get sick and some of us don't, even when you're still exposed to people around you.
Like a COVID.
Or like kids now, because of the fact that we were all at home for years, they're calling it like immunity debt, which they have not been exposed to a lot of the world. So now when their kids are not going to school, who have never even been around people, what are they starting to see? A huge rise in disease because of the fact that their immune system hasn't built up over time. And then people take that to heart, and they're like, yeah, let them eat dirt, let them feed his immunity. Like, don't do that either, right? Like, you're not trying to do it, just let them have a normal response to life. Don't force it where you're eating dirty things or things like that, but don't be shy away from it either. You know, there's a place and a time. Okay, so we went over the immunizations. Please make sure you know it. Okay, if you continue to read, you'll see that it makes a few key points on the rest of it. You do need to know this. Just like the typical experiences, it again bullet points the contraindications that we wrote here. So for example, look at MMR. It'll talk about the adverse effects, so you're just wary of like what can happen or what's normal, like the mild. But then look at precautions. Transfusion with blood product containing antibodies within the prior 11 months. So if they received a blood transfusion, like immunoglobulins in the last year, they can't receive it. Or it says tuberculin skin testing, which is your PPD or man-toe test. So if you have to be wary of these instructions for the immunizations, because that's what will be asked for my exam and for your ATI. So make sure you know how to administer it by doses, who it's recommended to, and who should not receive the vaccine, whether it's from what we read right now in the paragraphs or the right side on page 603 and 604. Is everybody clear? Now the easy one is, don't give it to people who are allergic to the vaccine itself. But generally that allergy is not to it, it's to the products that it's made with, hence like the eggs, or gelatin, or neomycin. Okay? Everybody clear on immunizations? Okay. It is